yourself easy. So I think, with any luck, we're live streaming on YouTube over here, and then on Facebook over there. My fingers are crossed. We had some technical difficulties the last time I tried to actually like multi-stream here. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully people will filter in. If you're just joining, let me know if you could hear me. I see Ashad joined up over on the YouTube side. Tahana, thanks, awesome. Mark, wow, people are filling in. Sounds like you could hear me. We're going to talk about whether or not working for yourself is easy, and probably just some Q&A. So David is over there too. Thanks, and I see we have some other people coming in on the Facebook side. So David could hear me. That's awesome. Cool. So we'll get rolling in a second. I see a lot of people filtering in. Thanks, Mark. And I'm doing pretty well today. I see no Jan. Thanks for joining up. If you're watching on the replay later on, particularly on Facebook, you can still let me know where you're at and everything. Hey Jim, what's up? Thanks for joining up over there on the Facebook side. Emil is on also. All right, cool. So again, today the topic is working for yourself easy? And I'll have to make sure, I don't make it like some sort of complaining session or something like that. And, oh man, I forgot to get more coffee. I'm going to run out here in the middle. Yeah, if anyone's keeping score, YouTube is still winning. So YouTube, looks like there's 6 or 7 people over on the YouTube side, and on Facebook there's just 2. So it's kind of interesting to see how this is playing out, and I may just continue on with with YouTube just in general, but every now and then like Facebook will kick up with 4 or 5 people. So Noyan, you have a question. Cool. So what we'll do, like I said, we'll probably just have some Q&A section in here as well. So you could ask questions, you could type them in. I see David, David is on both Facebook and YouTube, so my stats are all are off, but thanks for watching in both places. So basically I'm going to talk about like working for yourself a little bit, and maybe a topic for another day, maybe next week. I was like looking through some of my old papers, and I had like my first business that I ran was like a lawn care business, and I think it was like 11 or 12 or so. I think it must have been 11, and like I have a flyer, so I passed out flyers. I had an old computer, like a Tandy 1000, I think, and we had like a dot matrix printer, and basically I like made some flyer, passed them all around the neighborhood, and basically for years, probably about 9 years or so, I was cutting grass and made a lot of money cutting grass, and like bought my cars and stuff with it, and like bought computers to go to college and blah blah blah. But anyway, I was looking through flyers, and I actually still have one of the flyers, and was able to show people, or I'll be able to show people what that flyer looked like. And I saw someone on the YouTube side said there's no sound. Can people still hear me on YouTube? Just want to make sure that we're good to go. Funny thing, when I had difficulties, okay, Mill can hear me, so okay, D-Card was on mute. All right, cool. So hopefully things will run well today. Basically, I'm going to talk about like working for myself a little bit. Now, obviously, there's some really great aspects for working for yourself. A lot of times when I'm doing these live streams, especially in the last week or so, I'll say, hey, I'm going to bounce because I have to go to the gym. So I like to work out sort of like in the middle of the afternoon when it's not too crowded in there. So that's one great aspect. I could totally control my day. I can go to the grocery store whenever I want, and just sort of like do things when like my energy level is right for that activity. So I like working out in the afternoon when it's not too crowded. I like to go to the grocery store when it's not too crowded. I try not to, be out during like the rush hour, even though here in Bozeman there's not much rush hour. But sometimes it can take you a lot longer to get somewhere if you leave at the wrong time. So little things like that are awesome, right? Definitely like that portion of it. And I'm looking out at the grass. I can cut the grass in the middle of the day, or I guess more often I'd probably do it in the morning because it's not too as hot outside. But there's a lot of little aspects that are awesome. I can work earlier in the day. So for example, I'm kind of a morning person just by nature and in general. Sometimes I wake up at 6 and I can immediately start working if I want to, and basically finish up my day like later in the morning. I don't have to work into the evening, or if I worked at an office, I may have to go in at 9 or 9:30 and like just work longer hours later in the day, maybe when my activity level or my energy level isn't suited for that kind of work. So that's like a huge aspect of, and the advantages of working for yourself. And the other part is, technically, like if I wanted to, I could just do 4 days a week or 3 days a week if I wanted to. But now we're starting to get into the part of working for yourself that's not so easy. So I have like full autonomy on like whatever I want to work on for however long or as much or as little as I want. And that's where the problem comes up, because a lot of the time I end up like working longer than I intended to, which is kind of weird. But if you like what you're working on, which I have the luxury of like being able to work on stuff that I enjoy, like you will sometimes spend too much time working on it. And I'm sure, I've talked to some of the people out there that are watching, like if you sit down and you start working on something and you're enjoying it, you'll sort of get like focused in and obsessed, and you'll just keep working for hours and hours. And I've definitely done that. I've seen that through the years in stuff that I've worked on in college, on certain projects where I'll work for 12 hours straight for multiple days. Of course, then you need like some decompression time. I can't do it all the time, but that happens now, particularly when I can work on stuff that I want to work on and not work on things that I don't want to work on. So all of a sudden I'm only working on stuff that I enjoy working on, which is that's a good thing, right? Sure beats working on stuff that you hate, but at the same time, it's really hard to take a break. And then further, right? So I could only work 3 days a week if I wanted to, but instead I work like 6 days a week, which makes no sense other than the fact that I just mentioned that I like some of the things that I'm working on. So that's one aspect where like I'm working more than I need to, more than I have to, and there's plenty of time to I guess spend working if you like working it. However, that's not really the point of what I'm trying to do. I've mentioned it in some other blog posts and videos probably, where the goal isn't really to work all the time, even though we could. It's to spend time doing other stuff. So I have to remember that. Got to remind myself that. In fact, the other day, I think I mentioned it in one of these calls, although I think one of the live streams like cut off while I was videoing it. Basically, I sat down and I was working on some stuff, and I meant to go to the gym and I meant to go take a stroll and go for a little walk, but I was like really into whatever I was working on, so I totally missed the opportunity. And then it got crazy windy outside, and I couldn't even really like go out there and walk because the storm was blowing in also. And anyway, the point is, if you don't take breaks, you'll go crazy. So the other big part, and I'll pause here and just mention, I see Mahina and Rohit from India. So thanks for joining up on the Facebook side. If you're watching the replay later, as you know, we're talking about is working for yourself easy. And you can also let me know where you're from in the replay, in the comments, so I can catch it if you're watching the replay, rather. And if you have questions, you could ask there too, and I'll come back later. I know there were some questions coming in on the YouTube side, so I'll have to come back and take a quick look. So I'll just hit those before I get too far behind. So No Jan says, I'm going to index a new Amazon affiliate site, so you need my help. Well, this sounds like a long question, but I'll play along here. And Tahana says, you sold a compilation CD when you were like 8 to 14 because you had a computer and internet. That's awesome. Very cool. Asad says, how many hours on average do I work? You know what? I'm not 100% sure. It's probably like 6 to 8 hours a day for like 4 days a week. And then maybe like, I'm trying to think. There may be, usually I take a shorter day on the 5th day, or I do something else on one of the days. So if I had to guess, it's probably like 30 hours a week, something like that. I don't count, I haven't been reading as much in the last couple weeks. I've been working more on like implementing stuff that I have read, but I was going to say, I guess like for the first quarter of the year, I was probably reading like an hour or two per day. But since the last 5-figure niche site course launch, I've sort of tapered down, and as I mentioned, I read a book and then I thought, hey, I really need to make sure I implement the stuff in the book, not just read as much as I can. So, in fact, after I read a whole lot, I read 20 books in the quarter or something like that. I was like, it may be better if I just read like one book and really implement it well versus reading like as many books as I can. But nevertheless, I probably will pick that back up and read, hour and a half a day, part fiction, part nonfiction, just depending on like what I'm into and the time of day that I'm reading. Okay. All right, Leo is on YouTube and Facebook. Awesome. Appreciate the support. I like that, everybody. So the other big thing with working for yourself is you have to figure out what to work on. So this is probably like the biggest thing, and I think it's sort of transferable to, if you're like starting a coffee shop, like a brick and mortar business, if you are, an online, digital entrepreneur, if you're just starting working on niche sites, if you're running a blog, if you're trying to run a YouTube channel, there's like hundreds of things that you could work on in each one, like whatever it is. Like just think of whatever you're working on. Whatever it is, there's hundreds of different things that you could be working on, and it's really difficult. One of the luxuries of working for a corporation is you have a boss. Usually you'll have like 5 or 6 bosses, and then they'll have 5 or 6 bosses, and then there's some like big faceless entity that's the corporation, and basically someone tells you what to do because someone told them what to do, and it sort of trickles down in a way where even though people act like they have responsibility, no one really has responsibility. I mean, you could really screw up on something and it just kind of goes away in most cases. I mean, you would have to have like a whole lot of responsibility to actually make an actual mistake that has an impact. Now, sure, there could be, some sort of small outage with some users or something like that, but in most cases, like, you can recover from those super easy, right? Like, I did software stuff, so they would roll out some software updates, and it may actually impact users, but only if they were trying to like check their billing status at like 4 in the morning, because you always have contingency plans to like roll back. So the point is, The luxury of working for a corporation is that you don't really have to figure out what you're working on. Someone tells you what to work on, and you really don't have a huge amount of responsibility for the result. Because, like, there's 8 other bosses and then another layer of ownership. So, as the worker bees, like most of us probably are, um, you don't have to worry about too much. However, if you're working for yourself, you have to figure out what you're going to work on. Of the 150 things that you could be working on, it's really hard to figure out the most important ones. And even if you can narrow it down to like the top 5% of those things, that's still like 5 to 7 things you have to figure out. What's the most important thing to work on, and then what to focus on, and then how to balance that with some of the other activities that you're doing. You know, like I said, the leisure activities that I'm able to take advantage of and go work out at the gym in the middle of the day, well, that's cool and everything, but I also have to figure out like what activities do I really need to get done this week, so that, for example, I could launch my course in 6 weeks from now, right? So I have to figure out how to prioritize that and how to shape my day, my week, and then the month. Plus, as like a business grows, you're gonna have like more. Well, one, there's like more failure points, which isn't necessarily like a bad thing, but it's another thing that you have to think about. So there's more failure points because usually there's more interfaces. So I think I saw a question which I'll come back to on the YouTube side. Um, let's say I'm hiring some VAs. Like literally this week, I've hired like 8 writers. So I've hired 8 writers, and each of those writers I probably sent like 2 to 5 messages or so. And when you multiply that out, that's a lot of conversations going on. It's very distracting. So I kind of have to, I need to block off my time. And like this week, for example, in the morning, I've worked on like video editing, of which I actually I shot a video of me video editing, so you can see how I use ScreenFlow. So I'll publish that like in a week or two, over on the YouTube side. But I did video editing because that, for me personally, it takes like a chunk of time where I need to edit a full video all at once. And for me to edit, like it was about 10 minutes of raw video. It took me roughly like an hour and a half to go through it. And by the way, I'm getting a lot faster at it. Part of it is improving the delivery and shooting better raw video, so the editing is faster. But I'm also just getting better at using ScreenFlow, the tool that I use to to edit the videos. So I got that done this morning, and then I didn't even look at all of the Upwork messages that I have or any correspondence with any VAs, because that's like ping pong. That's going back and forth. If I send 5 messages, I'll get 6 messages back. Little things, right? So I hired some VAs for some trial jobs, and let's say I started the gig on or I hired them on Wednesday. Today's Friday, and they finished it early, right? The due date isn't until Friday, so I sort of like gave them a couple days to complete the work, and then in my head, I'm like, okay, it's not due till Friday. I'm not even gonna look or consider it until Friday. However, these folks are like so excited to work, and to work with me. They finish the work on Wednesday afternoon. They sent it in. They sent me an email, and they sent me a message. Both, right? They sent me 2 things and said, "Hey, I submitted the work. Let me know what you think." And I'm like, "Well, damn, I don't want to look at it now. I want to look at it on Friday. That's why I set the due date on Friday." So I have a choice at that. Like, here's one of the decision points, right? I could, right? If I'm thinking, oh, I need to maximize the throughput of like working with VAs, I could go over, look at the message, review the article they submitted, give them feedback, and go through the whole song and dance, which, like I said, that could take 5 to 6 messages depending on like what's happening. So I may give them feedback, They'll respond back, I'll look at it again, they'll submit it, and then I have to, close out the job. So at least 5 messages, maybe more. Or I could ignore it until I'm ready to go look at it, which I won't look at it until later on this afternoon, because for me, I know that later in the afternoon, I can look at those messages. I don't have to be as focused to look at a message. It's just all I need to do is read it and then come back to it with a response, right? If I'm editing video, I need like an hour to 2 hours to go and like sequentially like listen to, edit, and chop down the video. So anyway, to summarize the whole thing, there's really great aspects of working for yourself. I get to make my own hours. I could work as much or as little as I want. I could travel. I can go on road trips, whatever. I could, start work at noon each day if I wanted to. Turns out, since you could choose on, you could choose what you're working on. I tend to work on stuff that I enjoy working on. The downside, of course, is you can work as much as you want. So if you're choosing things that you like to work on, you may, if you don't set boundaries, you may end up working more than you really intended, and that's not always a good thing, right? Because we're not, like, my goal is not to work a whole bunch. My goal is to have free time and be able to do what I want during the day. So as long as I balance it, some days I'll work longer, some days I'll work shorter, but as long as I sort of balance the two, I usually come out all right. So again, on Facebook, if you have questions and you're watching the replay, feel free to type them in. I'll come back later. Thanks again, David, Mahina, Rohit, and Leo for watching over there, especially the double watchers. And then I see some questions and comments coming over here. So, and then after talking through some stuff, Ishad, how many hours do I work on average? I would say if I just threw out a number, I would say on average, maybe like 7 hours a day, 5 days a week. How many VAs do I have? It's totally like cyclical. I don't have VAs working for me all the time, but currently you caught me on a big week, right? So I'm trying to find, I'm building up a content team right now, like sort of spawning up a team that's going to do a whole bunch of writing for 2 different sites. So right now, this week, there's probably like 10 or 12 people working with me. And yeah, so there's a lot right now, but over the last like 6 weeks, it was probably like 2 VAs on average working with me. I've actually been having some people help me on YouTube descriptions and for, just like helping me out managing some of the like what I consider admin tasks. Typically, like for articles, I'm paying like $14 for an article, about roughly 1,000 words for writing. As far as hourly rates, I usually pay about $10 to $12 an hour. And Tahana mentions about people like working for themselves, pushing forward. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Let's see. And then Tahana also asks, do I have VAs for niche site project? Yeah, a little bit, and that's a new thing that I'm adding, but it's really around like I said, YouTube videos and writing the descriptions. So it's not like transcripts per se, but it's more like going through the videos. Like this video here, someone will come back and summarize it in like 300 to 500 words or so. And I'm sort of testing that out to actually, because I know, from an SEO standpoint for my niche sites, I know that it's important to actually have like some word count. So I don't know as much on the YouTube side. I also know that, having keyword rich descriptions is normally a good thing. So I'm hoping that it is also a good thing for YouTube. Interesting thing though, YouTube, like, they can detect what you're saying. So you'll notice I've said, is working for yourself easy multiple times. So is working for yourself easy? And if you go and look at like YouTube, and I'm not sure if it's available only on your own channel or if you could do this for like videos that you're just watching. But if you're on the desktop version, you may be able to look at like the closed caption and like as close as, I mean, it does a pretty good job. And I mean, if you go to like, you know, most all of our smartphones and other devices like that, they can they have voice recognition. So anyway, I think some of the SEO is around what we say. So that's why I've said is working for yourself easy like 5 or 6 times. So um, and then the other part to Hannah, the question that you asked, do I find working? Do you find work? Do you find yourself thinking about work in your free time, or do you easily clock out? Um, it's like 50-50. Like, if it's something that I'm excited about, I'll usually think about it a lot. I think yesterday I probably mentioned I'm like, YouTube's been good, right? That's why I'm doing these live streams and stuff. There's a whole other set of people that like use YouTube all the time, and I found myself using YouTube all the time over reading blog posts because specifically I was at the gym where now they have really good Wi-Fi, so I can stream YouTube videos while I'm like on the treadmill or on an elliptical machine or whatever. So I could like watch and consume information. It could be entertaining. It could be something I want to learn, and I usually do a combination of the two. But I found myself watching YouTube videos more than I was listening to podcasts, more than I'm reading blogs. I don't read that many blogs right now, and basically, if it's something I'm excited about, I will think about it, like when I'm not working, but it's usually something that I'm like I said, I could choose what I'm working on, so I'm gonna like definitely weight it towards things that I enjoy working on. So when I actually had a job, I think I was able to clock out most of the time and just sort of like focus on what I wanted to. But it always varied depending on like how stressed out I was. Alrighty, let's see. I see a couple questions on the Facebook side. Rohit asks, how do you limit yourself working on things that you absolutely love working on? I think I usually have some sort of like result or deliverable in mind. So, for example, I'm trying to think of something that I really like. For example, I'm going through. I don't love keyword research, but once I start doing it, it's pretty. It's great to get those results. So right now, because I'm spawning up a content team, I need to have a lot of keywords. So I'm going through keyword research right now, Rohit, and basically, like, I'm going to find probably like 100 keywords that meet the criteria that I need them to meet, and then that'll be enough for now, and then I'll just stop. Luckily, there's enough things that I like working on that, excuse me, there's enough things that I like working on that once I hit a certain amount of stuff, like 100 keywords, whatever deliverable I've identified ahead of time, I'll know that not only do I need to move on, but I can move on to something else that I enjoy. So it's not so bad to have to work in those kind of constraints. And then your comment, for example, I end up spending 12 to 14 hours on some odd days, even though it's not necessary. So, and I usually couple those with days where I don't work as much. So I think, like I mentioned a couple days ago, I realized I was sitting at my desk for like 8 hours or something. I didn't take as many breaks as I wanted to take, and I ended up sort of stressed out by the end of the day. I did get like a lot done. I got so much done, and it kind of surprised me. The next day, which was yesterday, I went to the post office to like renew my passport, so that burned an hour there. I went on a couple longer walks earlier in the day, so I went on like a two mile walk in the morning, and then went to the gym for like 2 hours also. So when I put the 2 days together, on average, it was probably like 7 hours. But on one day, I probably worked like 12, and then yesterday I probably worked like 4 or something like that. So I kind of pair days together where I'll go hard and then take it easy, or if I've taken it easy for a few days, then I'll work harder. Which, I mean, I could tell you that um, this week I worked pretty hard and I worked longer days in general because the week before I only worked like maybe a day and a half or 2 days because it was Memorial Day, so Monday was off. Um, and then my brother in law came in town on Friday, so I was, or sorry, on Thursday afternoon. So I stopped work early on Thursday. I took all of Friday off, and then sprinkle in like me going to the gym a few times, and doing some other stuff, cleaning up the house for a house guest. I only worked for a couple days. So this week I worked harder because I had, last week was pretty easy with a long weekend. Okay, this has been a long session today. I guess technically everything worked out, so that's good. I think should be able to do more of these next week. I'm still undecided on if YouTube or Facebook is better. So today the technology worked with me. Nothing crashed. So we'll give it a shot. And I think probably I may switch up the times. And David says YouTube all the way. Yeah, I think YouTube may be a little bit easier, especially if Facebook is going to be like sort of interfering with like what is shown on the feed. But you know what? We will only find out if we keep doing this like every day because I think like it gains momentum and stuff like that. I'm not sure. So we'll see how it goes. All right, cool. If you have topics that you want to hear about, you can leave me a comment or, well, actually, I guess there are comments on both sides. So leave me a comment if you have topics you want to cover. I did note from yesterday, we had like a full-on webinar. There was A/B testing on Google Analytics that Leo suggested, and someone also suggested interlinking. I can't remember who that was, but someone said it'd be cool to see like the right way and the wrong way to interlink niche sites or just websites in general. So I think that actually could be an interesting one as well. So we'll end it up. Everybody have, oh, it was Tahana. Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll catch up with you next time. Thanks.